Transfiguration Movement 6, the transformative frequency of oneness, of Mikael Korbanyahu. And YHWH shall be sovereign over all the earth. In that day there shall be one YHWH, and his name one. Zechariah 14, verse 9. If you do not believe when I spoke to you about earthly matters, how are you going to believe when I speak to you about the heavenly matters? John 3, verse 12. All right, I'm going to need you to take a deep breath with me for this one, beloved, because with this article right here, we're about to go all the way in. But before we dive deep into the dynamics of vibration and wholeness, I want to make a disclaimer. This piece right here is going to be long, strong, and take you to another zone. Passengers, at this time, Shifting Paradigms is going to ask that you please ensure your seatbelts are buckled as we prepare for takeoff. First off, to frame this opus, a major quote to capture the reasoning for the content of this article from my favorite philosopher of all time, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, aka Maimonides, aka the Rambam, taken from the Guide for the Perplexed, TGFTP, regarding metaphysics. Quote, "You must know that it is very injurious to begin with this branch of philosophy, these metaphysics, or to explain at first the sense of the similes occurring in prophecies and interpret the metaphors which are employed in historical accounts and which abound in the writings of the prophets. On the contrary, it is necessary to initiate the young and to instruct the less intelligent according to their comprehension, those who appear to be talented and to have capacity for the higher method of study, i.e., that based on proof and on true logical argument, should be gradually advanced towards perfection, either by tuition or by self-instruction. He, however, who begins with metaphysics will not only become confused in matters of religion, but will fall into complete infidelity. I compare such a person to an infant fed with wheaten bread, meat, and wine. It will undoubtedly die, not because such food is naturally unfit for the human body, but because of the weakness of the child who is unable to digest the food and cannot derive benefit from it. The same is the case with the true principles of science. They were presented in enigmas, clad in riddles, and taught by wise men in the most mysterious way that could be devised, not because they contain some secret evil or are contrary to the fundamental principles of the law, as fools think who are only philosophers in their own eyes, but because of the incapacity of man to comprehend them at the beginning of his studies. Only slight allusions have been made to them to serve for the guidance of those who are capable of understanding them. These sciences were, therefore, called mysteries, sodot, and secrets of the law, sitrei Torah, as we shall explain. This also is the reason why the Torah speaks the language of man, as we have explained, for it is the object of the Torah to serve as a guide for the instruction of the young, of women, and of the common people. And as all of them are incapable to comprehend the true sense of the words, tradition was considered sufficient to convey all truths which were to be established. And as regards ideals, only such remarks were made as would lead towards a knowledge of their existence, though not to a comprehension of their true essence. When a man attains to perfection and arrives at a knowledge of the secrets of the law, either through the assistance of a teacher or by self-instruction, being led by the understanding of one part to the study of the other, he will belong to those who faithfully believe in the true principles, either because of conclusive proof, where proof is possible, or by forcible arguments, where argument is admissible. He will have a true notion of those things which he previously received in similes and metaphors, and he will fully understand their sense. We have frequently mentioned in this treatise the principles of our sages, not to discuss the Ma'aseh Makarba, even in the presence of one pupil, except he be wise and intelligent. And then only the headings of the chapters are to be given to him. We must therefore begin with teaching these subjects according to the capacity of the pupil, and on two conditions. First, that he be wise, i.e., that he should have successfully gone through the preliminary studies. And secondly, that he be intelligent, talented, clear-headed, and of quick perception. That is, have a mind of his own. Mebin midah ato, as our sages termed it. Period. Secondly, let's go back to something I shared in the art and science of sublimation, the matter of higher octaves. After a combo that I had with my Ak Elihu about this revelation that I learned from researching YHWH's transfigurative experience, this principle of higher octaves struck me like a lightning bolt as we discussed the science and art of music and how musical notes and octaves have to be studied in order for musicians to recognize and be familiar with their sounds in order to play them. Being that reading music is both an art and a science, something that requires training and consistency, we also discussed how music, being basically formulaic and essentially all numbers, is arranged in a manner that musicians who are able to read the notes are also able to experience the harmony of the composition and create beautiful, concordant sound that are pleasing to the ear. And we all know the power of music. In fact, an African proverb states that he who understands music understands the cosmos. The same principle holds true for spiritual practitioners, a matter that requires our minds to be learned in scripture in order to perceive, comprehend, and live the life that it projects as its goal. This is what makes the children of Zion peculiar, that we follow the instructions of the master composer and orchestrate the most complex yet simple arrangement ever known to humanity, Messianic consciousness. In other words, for anyone who sets out to follow the Torah as it has been revealed will unquestionably produce the formulaic results given our practice of performing the commandments. Perfection. It is written, "Blessed are the perfect in the way, who walk in the Torah of YHWH." It is in this light that because of the perfect orchestration of YHWH's thoughts, words, and deeds according to Torah, he was granted the ability to stand radiant, illuminated in splendor, joined by Moshe and Eliyahu, two other ascended masters of Torah who transcended death, space, and time as a result of their harmonic alignment with the will of heaven. Witnessing this arrangement was Kepha, Yaakov, and Yohanan, who were granted access to this score because of their awareness of the vibration on which YHWH, Moshe, and Eliyahu were resonating, which allowed for them to perceive the light show that their masters displayed. What the three on the mountain with YHWH were witnessing wasn't just a vision. It was a manifestation of the frequency of higher octaves. When looking at the Transfiguration from this perspective, we will clearly see the life of spirituality isn't just about mysticism, it's straight up metaphysics. Let's refer back to music for a moment. When a pitch rises by an octave, it's the same note, just vibrating at a higher frequency. Spiritually speaking, our soul, when refined, sanctified, and attuned, also resonates on a higher octave of existence, ascending to a higher octave as it were. And it is this heightened resonance that not only allows for our soul to glow from resultant increased by the biophotonic emission, but also it allows for us to connect with the invisible realms, with truths that dwell beyond the veil of our ordinary perception. This supernatural ability present in YHWH is what allowed for Moshe and Eliyahu to manifest, even though they had transitioned into the realm of ancestors. The Yahushua was resonating on a refined, sanctified, and attuned level of consciousness is what attracted the corpuscular energy resonances of two of Israel's greatest prophets. Shedding light on this matter, it was the master Freemason and doctor, Albert Churchward, who in his seminal work, The Origin and Evolution of Freemasonry, connected with the origin and evolution of the human race, explains the periodic law of the corpuscle on pages 17 through 28. He explains the following. A corpuscle is a negative particle of electricity which can exist alone, 1/1000th the size and weight of an atom of hydrogen, with a velocity of about 100,000 miles per second, and can penetrate through the thickest block of steel. An atom is made up of two or more corpuscles surrounded by positive electricity. Positive electricity cannot exist alone. Matter is a group of atoms, either inorganic or organic. With regard to the number and arrangement of corpuscles, their structure as found in the formation of atoms and the different properties that are given structure would confer upon an atom, they follow the same periodic law as for the elements. The atom would not be electropositive or electronegative, and as the brain cells are made up of atoms composed of these corpuscles in various groups, almost in pure form, it is easy now to understand why causes such as shell shock, railway accidents, mental shock of any kind, or the bombardment of these corpuscles by others from an outside influence will convert a normal brain into an abnormal one. Also, how the divine creator, by increasing the number of groups of these corpuscles, has produced the higher types of man and higher evolution of the human race. One also obtains the physiological causes for good and evil to which the human race is subject, produced by evil or good influences outside the individual or individuals acting on the various groups of corpuscles in the brain cells of the objective, causing one group of corpuscles to lose a corpuscle at one of its terminals and another to gain it, by this arrangement possessing different properties. This occurs by what is called valency, grabbing power. A univalent positive series is one which, under certain circumstances, attains stability by losing one corpuscle. A univalent negative series is one that will acquire one and only one of the corpuscles of another series. The evolution of the organic follows the same law, or rather is a continuance of the same laws of the inorganic. As I stated supra, in the lower forms of life, the composition of the same laws, the composition and groupings of these corpuscles are comparatively few and simple. The human follows on under the same law. Take, for example, the lowest homo, the brain of a pygmy, primitive man. Here we find what is called the gray matter, from which all thoughts, will, and ideas emanate, comparatively thin, and the sulci of the brain are not deep. In the highest type of man, this gray matter is the thickest, and the brain has the deepest sulci. In the different types between the highest and lowest, we find many variations, the gray matter always getting thicker and the sulci deeper as we advance in the upward trend of evolution. Evolution being ever progressive, so these corpuscles ever multiply in numbers and series, and this is always the case normally. But if from any cause or causes this progress is interrupted, then the negative will constitute degenerative form will predominate, and a retrograde action may be the result. This is briefly the periodic law, or God's law, or it is commonly called the law of nature, which few people study and fewer comprehend. Yet these laws are true and immutable. In them we possess the key to gain the whole knowledge of the secrets of the universe, life and death, and the hereafter, the causes and effects of the rise and fall of all nations. For the causes and the results we see developed in the human for good or ill, the actions, thoughts, the different attitudes assumed by men and women, who may live under the same surroundings, but who in thoughts, actions, and words are diametrically opposed to each other in their opinions on any given subject, each one supposing and believing himself to be right, yet at the same time, many laboring under the greatest fallacy, because the normal condition of the corpuscles of the atoms comprising their brain cells has received wrong impressions, either positive or negative, the result of different groupings. This may occur in many ways, i.e., by reading that which is not true, being erroneously taught, or having their brain corpuscles bombarded by others outside by suggestion or any other pernicious influence. This ease will also produce the same results, or, if I may put it in one another way, some of these causes will produce disease, which is a disarrangement of the corpuscles of one or more series. In some cases, where too many of the brain corpuscles have not escaped to any great extent from the one normal series by treatment, this may recover again the corpuscles which have escaped, and so we then have a return of a normal brain. Here, Albert Churchward's writing presents a metaphysical and scientific interpretation of the periodic law of the corpuscle, describing how the fundamental particles, corpuscles, which form the basis of atoms and matter, operate according to harmonious, law-bound arrangements, much like musical notes in a scale. Churchward describes the corpuscle as a primal, negatively charged particle that forms the building blocks of atoms. These atoms, in turn, construct the brain and the body. The periodic law, traditionally applied to chemical elements, also governs the structure and arrangement of these corpuscles, determining the properties and behaviors of atoms. Churchward suggested that the transfiguration of humanity, our mental, spiritual, and even evolutionary development, is a function of refining these structures by increasing the complexity and harmonious groupings of corpuscles. The Creator advances humanity toward higher forms. Just as musical notes follow laws of harmonic resonance, so too do corpuscles operate in structured groupings that determine the quality of the atom, much like a chord or a scale defines the mood and tone of a piece of music. The valency Churchward mentions, the tendency to gain or lose corpuscles, can be likened to musical intervals, where certain combinations produce consonance, harmony, or dissonance, tension. In the same way that notes in a higher octave are mathematically related to those in the lower one, but vibrate at higher frequencies. Churchward goes on to say that human evolution, mental, spiritual, and moral, can be seen as a rise to higher vibrational states. Just as music ascends octaves, the human being ascends in consciousness by reordering or upgrading the arrangement of the corpuscles within, attaining a heavenly resonant state. Churchward's metaphor reveals that just as music is structured by harmonic laws, so is matter, and by extension, human consciousness. The transfiguration of humanity is a movement towards spiritual harmony, akin to music ascending in octaves of frequency through the supernal reorganization of corpuscular structures within us. Shifting our attention, but building on the periodic law of the corpuscle, which again reveals how matter and consciousness evolve through the structured arrangement of subatomic particles, we naturally transition to the law of conservation of energy. This law states that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. This immutable principle of physics suggests that the essence of life, encoded in our energetic and corpuscular composition, is not extinguished at death, but rather transmuted. Just as corpuscles rearrange and resonate at higher frequencies in accordance with the Torah law, so too does the soul, which is energy clothed in matter, await its reconstitution. This forms the scientific underpinning of resurrection, which is not merely a theological hope, but a natural consequence of energetic continuity and spiritual refinement. It is with the resurrection that the body, like a musical instrument retuned, is raised incorruptible to vibrate in perfect harmony with supernal purpose of this reality. Church Ward goes on to say in the same treatise on pages 33 through 39 that, quote, nature is not like the products or works of man. No, because man could never produce that which Elohim can with his little servants. All man can do is to use these, mechanically or otherwise, and produce different forms of things, either material or diverse, such as good or bad actions or thoughts. He cannot, however, produce the ultimate forms of the very atoms with which he works. These are given to him by a divine creator in order to attain a higher type, a higher standard for himself and those who follow him. As man has advanced up the ladder of evolution, so by the divine will, these corpuscles have with time produced a higher type of the human from the original, by different combinations of the corpuscles forming the brain cells, and the law of evolution is tending to be always progressive and to evolve a superior homo. How could these things be if there was no great divine creator? It is the eternal law of evolution, the key to learn. This knowledge lies in the periodic law of the corpuscles and elements. Here only can you find your alphabet, learn to spell and then read the universe of the Most High, not the socialist universe. In socialism, ethics becomes political, and politics become ethical, whilst religion in the end is consigned to be absorbed in a corporate social consciousness of which the telos is the final purpose of society, thus implying that there is no life hereafter or spiritual second life. That is a great fallacy and the cause of unbelief in the phenomena of spirit life hereafter. The truth is that memory is located in the brain corpuscles and in the brain corpuscles alone. And although the matter part dies, the corpuscles do not die, but still exist and can be seen, the same as the body corpuscles. The whole spirit of the man or woman after death has no material body or material brain, but these exist as the likeness of the body and brain in a bright corpuscular form. The periodic law provides for this. The knowledge of the periodic law of the corpuscles gives you the key to unlock the book containing the hidden mysteries of the universe. It points out to you clearly and definitively the causes of the fall of every great nation. In the course of time, science, which now rightly demands verification and proof, will discover the secret and acknowledge the truth. But scientists as a whole have much to learn, and until they take the trouble to do so, they will not make any great advancement or gain any real knowledge regarding the secrets of nature and the cosmic laws. End quote. Albert Churchward's research reflects a profound intersection between spiritual insight and scientific law. He found that while humans can manipulate matter into different forms, we do not create the foundational units of life. Hence, he elucidated on the corpuscles, what we might now relate to as subatomic particles or fundamental energy blocks. These quantum particles, he says, are divinely given, a part of a higher order embedded in the periodic law, and serve as the building blocks for all forms, including consciousness and memory. In essence, Churchward presents a theology of energy, a sacred science. He affirmed that all physical and spiritual life is sourced from, sustained by, and ultimately returns to the Creator through a structured, intelligent design. This perspective harmonizes powerfully with the law of conservation of energy. From the quote, we read that Churchward suggested that even after death, the essence of human existence, the spiritual residue composed of bright corpuscular energy, remains. This residue, he clearly showed, does not vanish with the decay of flesh. It transforms, transfigures, and continues in a higher form, echoing the scientific truth of the law of conservation of energy, that matter and energy persists beyond physical death. This sets the stage for a deeper mystery. What if the energy that animates us, the spiritual field that carries our essence, does not end, but simply transitions? What if the death of the body is not the end of life, but it transforms into something more luminous, more eternal? Messiah Yeshua, in accordance with the Torah and in complete agreement with these natural laws of quantum physics, reassures a family that had just suffered the loss of one of their beloved members in John 11, verse 25, that I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even if he dies, shall live. The reason for this is simple. Prophetically speaking, it is because we are told by the prophet Isaiah in chapter 40, verse 8, that the grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of our Elohim stands forever. Nature, in its visible finite dimensions, has limitations and eventually perishes. The unseen spiritual realm of existence, however, is both eternal and infinite. When one is able to receive this revelation of the eternality and indivisibility of the transcendental word of Elohim, and that, like Yeshua, we too are able to become the word made flesh, then everything for us is made clear. This is also because, universally speaking, everything is vibration. One of the biggest challenges for us in our day and age is that even though some frequencies exist beyond the field of perception, it is almost impossible to convince us that they are no less real. But when we do decide to return to the image and likeness of Elohim, a return to our intellectual clarity and primordial nature, we begin to align with the higher vibrational field of oneness that pervades all of creation, both the seen and unseen realms. Throughout the existence of humanity and our ongoing pursuit to understand the very fabric of existence, both science and spirituality have come to startlingly similar conclusions. Everything is connected. Every generation has presented profound findings from the most brilliant minds that have consistently revealed that beneath the surface of material reality lies an intricate web of unseen forces. Those with astute perception have seen that there are patterns of energy and an intelligence that binds the cosmos together in elegant unity. As the mystics of old spoke of divine oneness, Echad, modern scientists have begun to describe it in their own terms. Quantum physicists call this the unified field theory, UFT. This explanation, which provides a working framework for the interconnectedness of existence, is accompanied by another observable physical phenomena called quantum entanglement, QE. These two dynamics of existence hold a major key to understand the mysteries of creation and how it is sustained by invisible forces. But put these two in your pocket for a moment, because we're going to come back to them shortly and connect the dots after something that needs to be said. Before we do, though, allow me to reconcile an essential truth that's been already alluded to, which I am certain will be able to dispel many of the misconceptions, superstitions, and delusions from which humanity struggles to overcome. Science and spirituality are not at war with one another. In fact, they are complementary. By this, it is understood in physics that complementarity can be thought of as the realization that particle and wave behavior are mutually exclusive, yet that both are necessary for a complete description of all phenomena. The role of complementarity is much like the realities of spirit and flesh, mind and body, heaven and earth, light and dark, and every other dialectic of which you can conceive. The interdependence of their duality is essential. To articulate his position in alignment with this matter, Einstein, one of the greatest contemporary scientists in modern minds, once said that, quote, "Science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind." In fact, the more science evolves, particularly in the field of quantum physics, the more it starts to sound like scripture, especially when you break it down to its core energy-based principles. In order to show that there are more affinities between science and spirituality, there's a relatively recent discovery that perfectly captures the intersectionality of these two significant areas. So back in 2012, when scientists at CERN announced they had discovered the Higgs boson, what many in the media dubbed the God particle, the world split its wig. Headlines screamed with awe, and for a moment, the boundary between science and spirit blurred. But what is this so-called God particle? And how does it connect to everything that I've been saying about vibration, frequency, oneness, in the image of Elohim? Well, let's go on ahead and make this make sense right quick. According to physicists, the Higgs boson is the particle that gives mass to all other particles. As a part of the Higgs field, a substance that is said to fill the entire universe, the boson is an invisible energy field that stretches across the universe. As particles move through it, they interact with the field and gain mass. Essentially, what this field does is tell energy how to become matter. So just selah on that for a moment. Physicists say that the Higgs field is said to be what gives substance to everything in the material world. Without it, atoms wouldn't atom, stars wouldn't star, planets wouldn't planet, and people wouldn't people. Serious business. Do yourself a favor and let that sink in spiritually. In Torah language, the Higgs field sounds a lot like the Ruach HaKodesh, the Hebrew word for what we more commonly know as the Holy Spirit. This is the spirit which hovered over the deep in Genesis 1:2, setting the vibration for creation. Powerfully, the Baal HaTurim commentary reveals that the Spirit of Elohim hovering has a gematria, a numerical equivalent of this is the Spirit of the Messiah. In essence, the Torah is telling us that the same force that gave birth to creation is the same force that empowers Messianic consciousness, the spirit of supernal transformation and unification. So when science speaks of a field that gives shape to all matter, and Torah speaks of a spirit that shapes all creation, they are not in contradiction. They are describing the same field through different lenses. One calls it energy, the other spirit. But both reveal that at the root of everything is a vibration of purpose, a field of holy frequency, ready to bring order out of chaos. And at the center of that vibration is Mashiach, the agent of transfiguration, the bridge between spirit and substance, between heaven and earth. This insight becomes more substantially evident when we take into account that Yeshua informed his followers that the words he spoke were spirit and life, a matter which emanates a procreative force that also sustains and invigorates all life. Comparatively, when we consider that the Higgs field animates the physical world with form, and that the Ruach also gives life and breath to the spiritual essence of all things, Psalm 33:6 entirely captures this reality when it states, quote, "By the word of YHWH the heavens were made, and by the breath of his mouth all their hosts." Here, the word for breath is Ruach. In addition to recognizing Messiah as the incarnate word, when further considering the depths of this profound Hebrew word, we find the following definition of Ruach in the dictionary of Torah names and words: wind, air, breath, to smell, scent, both as means of perception and for pleasure, delight, mind, intellect, the formulation of mind that holds an assignment, literally, the principal force which contains purpose and assignment. One's origin and identity are encapsulated in one's assignment. The vehicle of life within forms, the animator, expressed in the feminine gender in signification of its role to carry, to bear the life force within the tabernacle. The intelligence of unity concerning all services and operations of life. That component in man which truly unites in contradistinction to the flesh, which divides, distinguishes the part of man, one from another, and which is capable of preference for one part above the whole. The inward guide of life, literally the ruling power that administers mercy and justice. the interior faculty capable of seeing beyond the physical, literally, the mind that is yoked to the perspective of enlightenment, the means of both ascent into spiritual realms and descent into physical realms. Also, distance, space, interval, relief, spaciousness, to be wide, profit, gain, the bearing of interest. Note, it is the primary work action of presence, the mind's gift for interchange. To contextualize the idea of Ruach, I turn again to the Rambam, who gives us the full scope of how the word is used linguistically and ideologically in Hebrew. In chapter 40 of part 1 in TGFTP, he gives us the following insight. Ruach is a homonym, signifying air, that is one of the four elements. Compare, and the air of Elohim moved, Genesis 1:2. It also denotes wind. Compare, and the east wind, Ruach, brought the locusts, Exodus 10:3. West wind, Ruach, verse 19. In this sense, the word occurs frequently. Next, it signifies breath. Compare, a breath, Ruach, that passes away and does not come again. Psalm 8:39. Wherein is the breath, Ruach, of life, Genesis 7:15. It signifies also that which remains of man after his death and is not subject to destruction. Compare, and the spirit, Ruach, shall return unto Elohim who gave it, Ecclesiastes 12:7. Another signification of this word is the divine inspiration of the prophets, whereby they prophesy, as we shall explain when speaking on prophecy, as far as it is opportune to discuss this subject in a treatise like this. Compare, and I will take of the spirit, Ruach, which is upon thee, and will put it upon them, Numbers 11:17. And it came to pass, when the spirit, Ruach, rested upon them, verse 25. The spirit, Ruach, of YHWH spake by me, 2 Samuel 23:2. The term is frequently used in this sense. The meaning of intention, will, is likewise contained in the word Ruach. Compare, a fool utters all his spirit, Ruach, Proverbs 29:11, i.e. his intention and will. And the spirit, Ruach, of Egypt shall fall in the midst thereof, and I will destroy the counsel thereof, Isaiah 19:3, i.e. her intentions will be frustrated and her plans will be obscured. Who has comprehended the spirit, Ruach, of YHWH, or who is familiar with his counsel that he may tell us? Isaiah 40:13, i.e. who knows the order fixed by his will or perceives the system of his providence in the existing world, that he may tell us. Thus, the Hebrew Ruach, when used in reference to Elohim, has generally the fifth signification. Sometimes, however, as explained above, the last signification, viz. Will. The meaning of the word in each individual case is therefore to be determined by the context. From the definition and explanation of Ruach, we should be able to both delineate and integrate the matter of spirit in the Higgs boson. In so doing, we must comprehend categorically that though the Higgs boson is not Elohim, nor is the Ruach itself, it is a visible expression of the unseen spiritual dynamics of creation. The Higgs boson provides us with the scientific glimpse into the quantum world of spirit or intelligent energy, as well as the scientific way that Elohim breathes structure into what was formless. It scientifically points to an unseen reality that governs the visible one, just like Hashgacha, or divine providence, operates beneath the perceptible surface of our experiences. Now, with all that laid out, we're finally ready to get back to the dynamics of the unified field theory and quantum entanglement. If the UFT aims to explain how all forces in matter are simply expressions of one underlying reality, QE shows us that once connected particles remain linked across any distance, and the Higgs boson adds a stunning revelation. Even mass, the substance of our reality, arises from an unseen, ever-present field, then there should be no doubt in the existence of intelligent design or a sovereign creator. How's that for a syllogism? Put simply, UFT says everything is one system. QE says everything that once was connected still is. The Higgs boson says everything has formed because of an invisible field that gives its identity. Sound familiar? Genesis 1:31 states, and Elohim saw all that he had made, and see, it was very good. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning, the sixth day. Interestingly, the Hebrew word for good is tov, which according to the Torah Dictionary of Names and Words, number 2808 through 10, has as its most expansive meaning, affirmation comprised of the three letters of unification, literally, gathering all together as one house. See Numbers 28:3. The state of perfect agreement, a property holding in Syria, Ashur, stepping aright, given to achieve the full inheritance or flow of life without restriction. Literally, to hold all together in an estate, to be pleasant, happy, glad, wealth, welfare, benefit, to be fair, literally, an arrangement that joins a house in unity. As we can see from this expansive definition, the Hebrew word tov is an affirmation comprised of the three letters of unification. The letters tet, concealed good, vav, connection, and bet, house, quite literally accounts for the existence and discovery of the UTE, QE, and HB as Elohim's power to gather all together as one house. Is it not impossible to refer to a reality where everything is connected, flowing and vibrating in resonance with no resistance, no fragmentation? Clearly, these mechanics demonstrate that this is the energetic signature of the universe is aligned with the creative capacity of Elohim as expressed in the Torah. Revisiting this quantum trinity and continuing to connect the dots, we further see that the unified field theory tells us that all matter and energy stem from a single unified force and source, a field of oneness. Quantum entanglement reveals that once connected particles remain connected, regardless of distance, a scientific confirmation of the spiritual truth that all things are Echad. And the Higgs boson shows us how invisible fields give form and identity to matter, just as the divine word gives purpose and presence to every created thing. So when Genesis says it was told, it is universally declaring that the vibration of oneness was present in all of creation. At its core, everything is connected and good. Everything was aligned, entangled, unified, attuned to the source. And as we take the time to process this dynamic in totality, we are able to arrive at the conclusion that based on the principles of goodness from this scripture, to be tov is to be more than good. To be tov in spirit and truth is to exist in the state of heavenly resonance, where spiritual structure, scientific theory, and personal wholeness harmonize. It's what happens when we purposefully step into our inheritance as sons and daughters of Elohim and live lives that hold all together in an estate, one house, one frequency, one field. This is not just moral goodness. This is quantum shalom, and it is the foundation of transfiguration. From this point forward, we should be able to come to the perception that as humans, we are not just fleshly bodies and earthly beings. We are higher vibrational messengers utilizing the vehicle of our fleshly body, whose soul is made in the image of the one who speaks light out of darkness and quickens everything in existence with pure spirit. The God particle in its role reminds us that our physicality is not some random accident, but the result of interaction with the cosmic field that reflects a deeper spiritual source. It is in this light that we are able to fully see that we are souls with the spirit that animates our body. And when we reconnect with our source, there we experience the transformative power of oneness. To further elucidate this reality in mystical thought, a dynamic on which we've addressed prior, Yechidah, the deepest layer of self, untouched by ego, sin, or fragmentation, is the part of us that is eternally one with Elohim. The Higgs boson, in a symbolic sense, represents how the infinite, Ein Sof, becomes visible through structure, how light becomes matter without losing its source. And what is the Ein Sof, you might ask? In the most sacred Israel in the tradition, Ein Sof literally means without end. It's the name given to the infinite, the utterly boundless, unknowable aspect of Elohim that exists beyond all attributes, definitions, or limitations. Ein Sof is not a thing or place. It is the pure, infinite essence of being, beyond time, space, form, and even thought. Ein Sof represents the ultimate source before creation, before light, even before the idea of differentiation. It is the no thing from which everything emerges. As Zohar 242b reads, when the Ancient One, the concealed of all concealed, emerged, he carved a form in the universe. But before he caused this form to exist, he was alone, without form, and without resemblance to anything. Who can comprehend how he was before creation? In short, Ein Sof is the spiritual equivalent of what physicists might call the pre-singularity, a field of limitless potential, the background radiation of divine being. It refers to the unfiltered, unbounded radiance that emanates from Ein Sof. It is not physical light, but a metaphor for divine energy, intelligence, and consciousness flowing outward from the infinite source. It is the phenomena recorded of which we read of at Genesis 1:3, when Elohim said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Yicha-or, Yicha-or. This verse introduces more than physical illumination. It reveals the first emanation from the infinite. The Hebrew word or means light. And in Kabbalistic understanding, this is not the light of the sun or stars, which aren't created until the fourth day, but rather the primordial light, a spiritual force that radiates from the infinite source, Ein Sof. Before this utterance, the universe was in a state of formless void. It was without differentiation or structure, what science refers to as the quantum void. The sages of Israel teaches that before creation, all was absorbed in Ein Sof, the boundless, infinite aspect of Elohim. When Elohim said, "Let there be light," what emerged was Or Ein Sof, the light of the infinite, flowing outward in a controlled emanation to give shape to creation without overwhelming it. This light, the first word spoken into chaos, was the blueprint for order, time, consciousness, and all forms of existence. It was the divine frequency that initiated the transfiguration of void into cosmos. In this way, Yicha-or Vayicha-or is not just the beginning of the universe. It is the cosmic vibration that still underlies it, presently inviting all creation to echo back to the harmony of the One. This infinite light is what fills and surrounds creation. It is the very substance of spiritual reality, though paradoxically, it is also beyond substance. According to the teachings of the sages, before creation could begin, this light had to undergo simsum, or a cycle of contraction and expansion in order to make space for the finite existence. Or Ein Sof, scientifically speaking, is what fills the universe with potential, insight, and vitality. It is the light that undergirds all being, the divine light that animates every soul, every atom, every field of energy. The witness of Yochanan verifies this reality in chapter 1, verses 4 and 5, where it says, "In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness is not overcome it." This passage presents in full the Messianic reality of oneness that bears the very imprint and seal of authorship of YHWH, the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And by comprehending Ein Sof and Or Ein Sof, it will significantly help us to grasp the spiritual depths behind ideas like the unified field theory and quantum entanglement. Just as the Higgs field gives form to matter, Or Ein Sof gives shape to soul and creation. Just as quantum entanglement connects everything at a hidden level, Ein Sof is the ultimate backdrop of unity, the infinite root of all interconnectedness. So for us to be transfigured is to become more transparent to the order Ein Sof, to shed the layers of ego, shame, and illusion that block the infinite light within us. As Yeshua said in Matthew 6:22, if your eye be single, your whole body shall be full of light. That light is Yiha'or. That source, it's Or Ein Sof. Your soul, it's Ruach, an essence of being undergoing refinement to receive and reflect Or. For this corruptible has to put on incorruption, and this mortal to put on immortality. 1 Corinthians 15:53. This is the transfiguration. And to be transfigured is to come into alignment with this truth, to realize that the substance of our identity is not ego, appearance, or emotion, but oneness with the supernal field that animates all. The Higgs boson doesn't replace Elohim. It points to him. It shows that underneath all creation lies a signature of unity, a whisper of the word that spoke the universe into being. And as we refine ourselves through sublimation, Shema and Shalom, we begin to resonate with the divine frequency. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. He was in the beginning with Elohim. All came to be through him, and without him, not even one came to be that came to be. John 1, verses 1 through 3. In the language of science, we become aligned with the field. In the language of scripture, we become Echad with Elohim. Now, I'm quite certain that the next time you think about physics, energy, or the God particle, remember, even the deepest science is echoing what Torah has already declared. YHWH is one, and we are made in his likeness. And that, beloved, is transfiguration. This is what Deuteronomy 6:4 has always contained within its deepest meaning. With what is called the Shema, we find that it says, YHWH is our Elohim, YHWH is one. Know that when it makes this statement, that it's not just talking theologically, it's describing reality. The Creator is the unified source of everything, light, life, energy, breath, time. And when we attune ourselves, our thoughts, emotions, words, actions, to that oneness, we begin to harmonize with the very structure of creation. Think of it like this. Unification is the reality. Disconnection is the illusion. Every soul, every particle, every frequency comes from the same source. To live in harmony is to live in truth. And what is truth? Your righteousness is righteousness forever. And your Torah is truth. Psalm 119, 142. Truth is the principle that unites and empowers us. Fragmentation is a lie that keeps us scattered and powerless. But when we return to our source identity, the Selim Elohim, the image of Elohim, we stop fighting against reality and start flowing with it. Reflecting back one more time to the principle of quantum entanglement, the idea is that two particles once connected remain linked, even when separated by vast differences. If you affect one, the other responds instantly, as if they're still part of the same system. No wires, no signal delay, just pure, instantaneous connection. This is exactly how the Spirit operates. When you love someone deeply, you can feel their joy or pain, even if they're across the world. When you pray for someone sincerely, their life changes. When Israel repents, the ripple effect is felt in the nations. This is because whether we acknowledge or not, we're all connected. Yeshua prayed in John 17:21 that we would all be one, as you, Father, are in me and I in you. That's quantum entanglement at its root. And it means that we were never meant to operate as disconnected individuals. We're axiomatically and intrinsically part of a supernal network, a kingdom of priests, a holy people, a collective body of light. This is the oneness that Yeshua proclaimed, of which he was a part. And it is in this light we find that the Shema isn't just a prayer, it's a frequency tuner. And soon we'll see that it is even more. Yet in the meantime, it will serve us well to comprehend that its intent is to reconnect us with the source. And when we walk with conscious intent, knowing full well that we are one with Elohim, We rise in frequency, we stop operating statically and start flowing in dynamic harmony with the host of heavens. YHWH Seba. To further make this make sense, let's take a moment to look at two profound Hebrew principles that will further enable us to understand this in more depth. Echad. This is the word used in the Shema to describe the oneness of Elohim. It doesn't mean singularity and isolation, but a unified, complex multiplicity, like an orchestra. It is a harmony of distinct parts working in unison, tuned to one key. Deuteronomy 6:4 teaches us that YHWH is Echad, completely unified. And when we align with Echad, we are brought into unity within ourselves, with our people, and with our source. Tachlit emet, Hashgacha emet, true purpose, true providence. At its most basic meaning, Echad means the unity of life, selflessly expressed. Yehidah, the highest level of soul consciousness in Israelite mystical thought. It's the level of the soul that is totally one with Elohim. It is indivisible consciousness beyond ego and duality. Yehidah is said to be like a flame bound to the flame, a unity that can never be severed, our soul bound to the essence of Elohim. This is symbolized by the oneness of marriage and is expressed with the words, a man leaves his father and mother and clings to his wife so that they become one flesh. This, says Shaul of Tarsus, is the secret concerning Messiah and his community. When the soul is transfigured, it doesn't just reflect light. It becomes a conduit for the supernal light itself, fully connected to the source of the Or Ein Sof. This is the spiritual reality behind the Mount of Transfiguration. YHWH had reached the frequency of Yehidah, his soul and essence vibrating so purely that he stood in fellowship with Moshe and Eliyahu, caught up in the luminous fields of the Most High. And he invites us into that same union. To do this, we must know and understand and be reconciled with the reality that there is a science to spirit, a real one. When we think of spirit, we often imagine something spooky, mystical, airy, intangible. But if we break it down, what we're really talking about is energy, specifically intelligent energy. And energy has rules, formulas, equations, and results. Our master called the results fruits. One of those rules that consistently yields fruit is vibration. Now, according to the law of vibration, everything in existence is in constant motion. Your body, your thoughts, your emotions, the words you speak, the music you hear, the chair in which you're sitting, the car you drive, the clothes you wear, name it. All of it vibrates at certain frequencies, some high, some low, some healing, some destructive. And it just so happens that the frequency of oneness is one of the highest vibrations there is next to El Elyon, the Most High. This again brings us to the Shema, the heart of Israel's faith. And this is where it gets really good. Simple in words, profound in mystery, the Shema is not just a declaration of monotheism, as I stated earlier. It is a frequency tuning device. It aligns the soul with the singularity of the Creator, YHWH. When we say the Shema, we are reattuning our fragmented being back into wholeness, back into harmony with the source. We're plugging into the oneness that defines and sustains our reality. But what does this mean practically? To connect the dots, let's talk about wholeness now. In Hebrew, we find two powerful words, tamim and shalem. Tamim means complete, sound, without blemish. When YHWH calls Abraham to walk before him and be perfect, tamim, Genesis 17:1, it's not about being perfect in the Western sense. It's about being wholehearted, genuine and sincere, even innocent and blameless. Shalem shares the root with shalom, meaning peace, completeness, restoration. When we are shalem, we're integrated, not fragmented. We are spiritually and emotionally coherent. Wholeness is a frequency, and it is one we must choose daily. Peace is a vibration which we are to emit at all times, at all seasons. To affirm this reality, Psalm 119, 165 shares with us the beauty of life for the righteousness. Great peace, shalom have they who love your Torah, and nothing causes them to stumble. This connects deeply to our main idea, transfiguration. And as we've discussed in previous installments, the transfigured soul is one that vibrates at a different level, one that has surrendered to the oneness of Elohim, and in doing so, begins to reflect that oneness. Conversely, it is apparent that when your spirit is scattered, your power is too. That's why the most dangerous thing you can do in a disjointed world is become whole. Because the world doesn't desire wholeness, and because misery loves company, those who resonate wholeness are a threat to their existence. We see this in the teachings of Yeshua HaMashiach, who prayed in John 17, verses 9 through 11. I pray for them. I do not pray for the world, but for those whom you have given me, for they are yours. And all mine are yours, and yours are mine. And I have been esteemed in them, and I am no more in the world, but these are in the world. And I come to you, set apart Father. Guard them in your name, which you have given me, so that they might be one, as we are. This isn't poetic fluff. This is Messianic consciousness. This is quantum entanglement. This is frequency unification. This is harmonic vibration. This is kingdom code. So how do we get there? How do we become Tamim and Shalem? Quite simply, it starts with awareness, consciousness. It starts with hearing, which is why the Shema begins with hear. This is because listening is spiritual. It opens the portal to transformation. It allows the sound waves which carry the octaves and tones of oneness directly to our brain through our ears. It is also why silence is our ally, because in it, we are able to hear the secrets of existence that few are able to perceive. This is why we study, pray, and meditate. This is why study, prayer, and meditation are vital. This is why listening is absolutely essential. Secondly, the journey to becoming Tamim and Shalem continues with obedience. No, not robotic obedience, but intimate alignment. Like a musician tuning their instrument to the pitch of the song, so too is our faithful walk with Elohim about striking oneness. So reveals the prophet Micah in the 6th chapter and 8th verse. He has declared to you, O man, what is good. And what does YHWH require of you but to do right, and to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your Elohim. To walk humbly with Elohim is to trust Elohim. To trust Elohim is to know Elohim. To know Elohim is to be faithful to Elohim. To be faithful to Elohim is to love Elohim. To love Elohim is to keep the mitzvot, the commandments of Elohim. To keep the mitzvot of Elohim are not about earning love. It's not about earning love. They're about tuning into the love that already is. Selah. And remember when I told you that there was something more about the Shema that we were going to get into? Well, profoundly, the Zohar teaches us that the Shema is a weapon. Not just a prayer or a profession, but a weapon. Why a weapon? Because when you truly internalize oneness, no external force can divide, threaten, or thwart you. You are protected by the oneness that is with and in Elohim. Quote, when a man's ways please YHWH, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. Proverbs 16:7. To please Elohim is to keep the commandments of Elohim. To keep the commandments of Elohim is to offer yourself as a sacrifice to Elohim. To offer yourself as a sacrifice to Elohim is to be transfigured. And the path of transfiguration has been repeatedly stated is our path back to oneness. Not just with Elohim, but within ourselves and among each other. And while we all know that we live in a noisy, boisterous world, one of fragmentation, of constant and ceaseless scrolling and skimming and surface level engagement, the reality of the matter is that we were made for Shema, for oneness, for transfiguration. That's right. We were made to love. We were made to live. We were made to be light. We were made to resonate. We were made to hear We were made to tune in. We were made to be one. So today, I charge all of us. Let us proclaim the Shema not just with our mouths, but with our lives. Let us heal the fracture within. Let us forgive that part of ourselves we've been at war with. Let us make peace with the silence. Let us make peace with our people. Let us walk wholehearted. Let us become Messianic. Let our soul return to the frequency of Echad as the Spirit of Elohim did hover over the waters. For when we do, our transformation won't be a concept. It will be a whole vibration, and we will be the ultimate vibe. And all of the world will feel it without any doubts or questions. It is then that the entire earth will know that YHWH is Elohim, and that Elohim is one. And we will wholeheartedly and sincerely proclaim, Shema Israel, YHWH Eloheinu, YHWH Echad. The transfiguration continues. Selah.